is BluePrint PCB. We'll talk about how we feel that BluePrint PCB can help you produce designs with a similar to what we do with our DFM tool. It'll help you produce designs that a greater chance to be manufactured correctly and on time, and will actually help shorten that cycle. I've got some slides here that I want to go through before we get into the actual demonstration. I am going to show 3.5 today, which is in beta, due to be released by the end of the year. So if you do have any interest in the newer version, we will see some of that in this. But first of all, I'd like to go through these slides. They kind of set a base for us, and they tell us where BluePrint came from. And like I said, after that we'll go into demo, and we'll do demo for the rest of the time here. A little history of Downstream. We started with one product, CAM 350, and somewhere along the middle of our 11 years of existence, we decided that we wanted to create a secondary product. And we started thinking about what types of problems we had heard in our former jobs. Most of us had worked for CAD software. A few of us had worked in PCB manufacturing. And some of us were actual designers. So one of the most common issues that came up was PCB documentation and how poor the CAD systems out there were at creating it. Well, to be honest with you, they weren't designed to create PCB documentation. So it was a workaround in most of those tools. What we decided to do was to produce an add-on to CAM 350 that would create fabrication drawings. So we created a PowerPoint presentation, not unlike this one. We went out and we started showing it to our existing customer set, and it evolved beyond just creating fabrication drawings to an individual tool, and grew from there and has grown in the time since then to a really complete documentation tool for documenting PCB designs. Our theory was that we could automate the process of creating PCB documentation because the types of documents everybody's doing are the same, essentially. Most people are doing fabrication drawings, assembly drawings, some combination of the two. They are also doing panel drawings, rework drawings, guides for helping do the assembly process itself, variants, things like that. But those were common from design group to design group, and the content on those was common as well. Drill patterns, drill charts, revision blocks, title blocks. Yeah, you have one specific to your company, but everybody's doing a title block. The other part of the equation, the third part of the equation, was that much of the data that's needed to create this common content has already been produced and exists in the PCB design. So if we know what types of drawings we want to create, we know what content we want on those drawings, and we've already generated much of the information that's needed to fill out those drawings, then we can automate the process. And that's the concept that's behind BluePrint. As I said before, common content, a drawing border, note blocks, title blocks, revision blocks, all these are pretty common from company to company. All we need to do is arrange them, format them, and show them on a drawing. When we started talking about how we were going to create this tool, we thought about how we wanted it to look. Do we want it to look like a CAD tool? like Allegro, or do we want it to look like a CAM tool, like CAM 350 or Genesis or something like that? What we came up with, though, is we wanted it to look like a documentation tool, and look like a documentation tool that you're already familiar with. You're familiar with Excel and Outlook and Word and Visio and Acrobat. So we tried to create a tool that had a familiar feel to it if you were used to using those other Office-type tools. It gives us the ability to arrange things, too, to put them in places a lot easier than if we did it around a CAD tool or a CAM tool. You also see the actual document as you're working on it. Often when you do this in a CAD tool, you're working with various layers that get combined, and you really don't see the finished product until you export it. As I said before, we use the PCB design to drive the documentation. So we start with a PCB design, we bring that in, and we use that to create a layer stack up, a parts list, a drill chart, a drill pattern, a top and a bottom side view, even an exploded view. All of that can be created from the PCB design. One of the limitations of doing it in CAD data is that you're generally limited to how many views you can supply, because the CAD system really is used to you working in the right view, the right reading view of the data. Now, some of them have added the ability to have mirrored views and so forth, but a lot of people end up doing, an output and going into a secondary tool. And the problem there, of course, is that when the design changes, you have to re-output the data each time and then work with the new data in the tool. So by allowing the unlimited views of the PCB, and when we say a view of the PCB, you see a bunch of different views here, including some internal layers, but an assembly drawing, the parts lists, drill pattern, a layer stack up, those are all just different views of the PCB. So we allow those to be placed anywhere on any drawing, scale them, mirror them, rotate them, do whatever you want to essentially with them. We wanted to organize the tool into commonly used palettes. So we have palettes for different types of drawings that we're working on, and we also have a common elements palette for things that are common between all drawings, like borders and title blocks and so forth. But we have an assembly drawing palette, things that are commonly put on an assembly drawing, a fabrication drawing palette. We also have a panel drawing palette. So items that are used on those types of drawings are arranged and kept together in these palettes. We also understood that while we can leverage off of that PCB design to create most of our drawings, there are additional pieces of information that we want to have on our drawings, and we needed a way to bring those in. So basically, we allow you to import any kind of bitmap, graphic, video file, and you can embed those on your drawings. In the case of a logo, you can add that to your title block, save that off to the gallery so that it's always there and available to you. You can add reference files. You could even take the specification for building the circuit board and embed it in our document set. It's not limited to flat paper documentation. We have this whole idea of electronic documentation, and I'll speak more to that. Being able to bring in PDF, DXF, Gerber, NC files, bring all those in and embed them into the drawings in their native format too, so that not only can I put them on a sheet here, but I could also take them and deliver them to fabrication or assembly, and they can use them to build the actual product. And really any kind of graphics or text from any kind of application can be embedded into BluePrint and used on your documents, as well as being available in its native format. One of the issues with doing this in a CAD system is you have to have all these various templates for each type of information. So whereas we have a layer stack-up template, you would have a layer stack-up template for a 2-layer, 4-layer, 6-layer, and on and on and on. And you'd have to pick the correct one, then go in and modify the layers to the correct sequence in this particular design. And hopefully you did it all right, and then you can place it on the drawing. And if the design changes, of course, you do the process over again. Here, we use wizards to create common content. So as you can see here on the left, this is the information that came in from the CAD system. Our layer stack-up template looks at that and expands and shows you that information so that you don't have to have a separate one for each layer count. We also wanted to get beyond paper flat documentation, which I include DXF and PDF in those, in that we wanted live links to content directly in the drawing. So in this case, you see where we're calling out a detail. Well, if you click where it says Detail A on our drawing, it will bring Detail A up. Now that could be 3 sheets further into the drawing set, but it will bring up a picture of Detail A. And inside of Detail A is showing an assembly here, and one of the items in assembly is number 13. If I click on 13, it actually goes out to the parts list and shows me that item in the parts list. So you can have this intelligent links between the various items in your drawings. As it says here, call outs to notes, notes to details, and so forth, or even external to the drawing, an embedded or an external file, a URL. Throw your email address on the drawing itself, or embed audio or video files to show how to do something when you're building or manufacturing this design. And then we also wanted to provide a set of tools to address everything else. Our notes are a word processor. So everything you would expect to get with a word processor, you get in our note blocks. A mechanical CAD level of drafting tools, being able to draw items such as, like this barcode here or this capacitor here. You can draw those directly in our tool. Or if they were created in a mechanical tool, you can bring them into our tool and then edit them if you need to. Associative dimensioning, being able to, associate the dimensions to the actual view we're looking at. So if I expand that view, scale it, rotate it, whatever, the dimensions all stay consistent to the actual size. Being able to add any kind of table that I'd want to, maybe an impedance table or something like that. Cut and paste between other Windows applications. It is a Windows application. It's not a CAD tool modified to work under Windows. And being able to bring in other types of files. We also want to create this live link to the actual design. So if the design changes, all I have to do is import the new design. Not have to start over again. Most of the work that I've already done stays. I just simply bring in the new design, and all the information is updated to reflect the new design. And more on that as we go through the demo. Provide multiple viewing alternatives. We do have DXF and PDF, and you can print to a printer or print to a PDF writer. All of those are available to you. But we can also do things like publish to the web as an HTML document. So an intranet, not necessarily the internet, but to an intranet internal to your company, you could publish the whole documentation set. We have a free viewer that anybody can download and open up the database, which is probably the best way of doing it, and they just simply have the ability to look at all the documentation that's available. We also have the idea of pack and release, where you can embed that viewer along with the design and send that out as one single file. The person on the other end runs it. It brings up the documentation set in the viewer. They can view, they can't edit, and all the live links are maintained. So not only provide paper documentation, but provide ways to do electronic documentation. One of the things that came up as we were showing this to people was that they often use their CAD data to, their design file to store all the information needed to build the design. So we gave you the ability to do that in BluePrint as well. Basically, as I said before, you can store any file type in its native format in the BluePrint database, and then just write it out to the disk as it's needed to be worked on. So here you got an example of, you've got not only the schematic, you've got the design itself, and any DXF files, the Gerbers, and the specification is all embedded into a single file. So again, we feel that really the only enhancements that have been done in this area in the recent years is PDF. We feel that this goes well beyond PDF and will help you not only improve your documentation and your accuracy of your documentation, it will help you shorten that cycle, and more importantly than maybe all of that is give you the ability to provide more instructions, more in-depth instructions, instead of relying on somebody to interpret those instructions on the other side. And obviously get on to the next project sooner. So that's the PowerPoint that I have here, and I'm just going to go into the tool now and we'll start working on it. This is a beta version of 3.5. This is the start menu you'll see when you go into the tool. One of the things we're adding in 3.5 is RSS feeds. It'll actually show down here in the bottom. So those will give you information if there's a new version available, if there's a new tutorial available, or maybe some of the demos that we have out on YouTube, maybe there's some new ones. All that information can be pushed out to you. It gives us a better way to communicate with you, the designer. Well, oftentimes the person that gets the email notifications that there's new versions and so forth is not the designer. So this again just gives us a way to communicate with you. If you have security issues with your particular group, if you're in medical or military or something like that, then you can turn it off. I mean, it doesn't have to be turned on, but that does give you, again, a way to communicate, or a way for us to communicate with you. One of the nice things we've put in the start menu in 3.5, and it's a way to just get going really quick on BluePrint, but it also shows you really the scripting capabilities of BluePrint. I'm going to show you today how you would start out in BluePrint, and also how you would start out after you've created some templates. But you can really take it a lot further with scripting. And one of the things that we've included in 3.5 to show you how that works is this documentation wizard. What I'm going to do here is just simply go out and pick a CAD system. I'm using pads here, and I use an ASCII file, and I'm going to browse to that ASCII file. And I'm going to create a couple drawings. I'm going to create a fab drawing and an assembly drawing. I want them to be C-size sheets. On my fab drawing, I want a drill pattern, drill chart, stack up in fab notes. On my assembly drawing, I want one page with top and bottom side views and a parts list and assembly note. I can put them on a second page if I wanted to. I hit next, and it goes ahead and just generates all of this from that CAD file. Okay, here's my fab drawing. Here's my assembly drawing. So again, really this is meant to show you how you can use scripting to go even further with automating your PCB documentation. Okay. So let's go back to just our blank screen that we started with here. And this is what you're going to get the first time that you open up BluePrint. And we're just going to go in and say, create a new drawing. We're going to say Fabrication Drawing, and we're presented with a blank palette. Okay. On this palette, we can right-click on it here and go to Sheet Setup. We can see what size sheet is in here now. We can change that to any of the standard sizes, ISO, ANSI. We can also change the units on a particular sheet right here. While on that topic, if you go to Tools Options, and you should to familiarize yourself with the tool, there is a large amount of general settings that you can do in here. Everything from auto saves to how snaps are done to what units we're going to use on our globally or on individual sheets, to how different views of the PCB are done. So there's a lot of controls and tools options for your defaults on a particular, on any particular design documentation you start. So I'm going to go to my Common Elements palette, and I'm just going to simply drag and drop a border, a title block, and a revision block. I zoom into this title block to kind of get an idea of what our building blocks are looking like. It's just a note block. I would probably come in here and drop in a logo, and then I would save this off to the gallery so that that's the one that I always use. So once I make a modification to any of these sorts of things, I can save them off to the gallery. And when I click on title blocks, if I have more than one, they'll show here, and I set one of them as the default, and that's the one that gets populated when I do a drag and drop. There's some intelligence to these title blocks. First of all, they know they go in the lower right by default. As you can see here, it knows it's Rev A. That's done through our document variable manager, and I'm going to show you that here. If I went to drawing number, rather than type in a drawing number, I'm just going to say insert a reference, and I'm going to go out to my document variable manager, and I'm going to choose the part number. Okay, so now it populates in there automatically for me. Vice versa, if I come out to the document variable manager and I go to the system part number and I make a modification to the system part number, it updates all my drawings with that information. So it gives you a much more intelligent way of doing this as opposed to trying to remember to update each drawing. My sheet border out here, again, just like everything you add in BluePrint, I can format this. So right-click on it, go to Format Border. Let's just say I want a 1/2 inch all the way around. Maybe I want to go left to right and top to bottom on my numbering. And maybe I want to show the microfilm arrows. It's kind of a dated idea, but a lot of people still show these. And maybe I want a different font. Or maybe I want to skip some of these zones. I know some people put part numbers in some of these zones. But all of that's modifiable, and the reason you would do this as opposed to bringing in your existing ones is that if I want to make this a D-size sheet, all I have to do is make it a D-size sheet. It expands to the D-size sheet. Okay. So it's a much more intelligent way of doing it than, you know, having static borders for each drawing size. Okay. So I'm creating a fabrication drawing. So what are the standard things I want on a fabrication drawing? Well, I want a drill pattern, and I probably want a drill chart, and I want a layer stack up, and I probably have some fabrication notes. Well, with the exception of the notes, all I'm getting really is placement holders here. And the reason for that is I don't have any CAD data loaded. These will populate when I load the CAD data. I'm just setting up templates, again, if you will, for what I want my fabrication drawing to look like. Same idea with the assembly drawing. So if I go New, Drawing, and say Assembly Drawing, again, I'm presented with this blank sheet. Now, as you get your standard sheets set up, you know, with your title blocks, your notes, and maybe you have, you know, static notes and things like that, and confidentiality notes, you'll have those be what populates when you say New Drawing. Those will come up automatically for you. But again, as I'm starting from scratch here, I'll just go ahead and drop a sheet border in the title block and a revision block. Or maybe I drop a continuation block if it's sheet 2. But Since this is an assembly drawing, it's going to be sheet 1 of my assembly drawing. I'm going to go to my assembly drawing palette. I'm going to put down a top side view. I'm going to put down a bottom side view. I'm going to go into my bottom side view and format it here and tell it to mirror it horizontally so that it's right reading once it comes in. I'm going to add some assembly notes. So there's my template for my assembly drawing. Of course, I understand you'll probably have a lot more than just this on there, but continuing with that idea, now I'm going to say insert new sheets. And what this does, this makes it page 2 of the existing one. And I'm just going to say OK. Now, I made it a size C. I really didn't want a size C. What I really wanted was size A, and I wanted a portrait. Okay. And to that, I'm going to add a parts list. And I have a simple parts list that I'm going to have populate here. So if I zoom out here, you can see that I've got my templates for my drawing set. And this is going to be my starting point from now on. Once I've created these, this is my starting point when I'm done with the design and ready to start documenting that design. I don't have to start from scratch. Everything I've done in the last 30 minutes would have already been done. So again, this is your starting point when you're ready to start with documenting one of your designs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my personal ones here. It'll look a lot like what we just did, fabrication drawing, assembly drawing, parts of. And I've got a generic drawing at the bottom we'll take a look at in a few minutes. So now what do? I import the CAD data. Currently we support ODB++ from most of the CAD systems out there. The exceptions being pads, we take the ASCII. The reason for that was their ODB was not ready when we created BluePrint. I believe either this rev or the next rev, there'll be a pads ODB++ option. And 2581, we take that from Zukin. And with this release, we'll also take that from Allegro, as there are more and more people outputting the IPC specification as opposed to the ODB specification. So we'll support both. Here at Downstream, we are part of the 2581 consortium, so that's why we're promoting that as an alternative as well. It's an open standard as opposed to one that's owned by a particular company. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to bring in pads ASCII. It's going to ask me which of my documents I want to update. I'm going to do them all since this is the first time through. I'm going to zoom into my fab drawing here, and we'll spend a little bit of time on the fab drawing. Now, I'm going to spend some time on the fab drawing. Usually it's probably the easiest thing to create, but I'm going to spend the time on it to show you just some of the different capabilities of BluePrint. So I'm going to come up and zoom into my layer stack up here, and you can see that it created this 4-layer stack up. It brought that information directly in from the CAD system. That information was contained in the CAD system, the dielectrics, the copper weight and ounce, as well as the thickness. Now, you know me, that's kind of redundant information, so I can always go over here and edit my template and choose that field and choose different information. So, you know what, I don't really want the copper thickness, I just want the copper weight. So I'm just going to delete that and say OK, and then when I re-execute this template, it just has that information in there. So you can modify these templates to have the information that you want in them. You know, you may want some sort of fancy color coding. I've seen that. I've seen different types of patterns over here. This is kind of a IPC suggested stack up, but you don't have to use that. You can modify this, and there'll be a lot of tools for modifying it to try to make it look like what you want your stack up to look like. Same idea down here on the drill chart. If I go in here and edit this template, you can kind of get an idea of what fields are available here. If I go in and format any of the cells and go into the data fields, I can change which data fields are in each cell. I can add, it's just a text box. So I can add additional columns and rows and modify it to what I want my drill chart to look like. And once I've done that, I can go ahead and execute it. Okay. So here I have a drill pattern. Okay. Well, one thing I noticed right away is it looks like all those X's are a bit busy. They kind of overwhelm everything. So if I really want a legible drill pattern, maybe I'll come over here to my Fabrication Manager and reduce the size of the symbols. So it's not like I have static symbols that I can't change. I can change not only the symbol itself, but I can change the size of the symbols. I can even set up patterns how I want this to populate. So we have one customer that always starts with the smallest drill size is A and goes from there, and they set that up as a default. So when the data comes in, it just simply goes smallest to largest, starts A, B, C, D, and so forth. Okay. There's some other things in the Fabrication Drawing Manager. They have to do with creating a fab drawing. So, you know, everything from PCB attributes, or, you know, if I want somewhere to specify the thickness, I can put that in there. If it didn't come in from the CAD system. And I can now use that in like a scoring detail or something like that. It'll automatically populate for me. All right. The next thing I might want to do is do some dimensioning. And we do have auto dimensioning, as you might expect. You can just simply pull dimensions off. Or I might do datum dimensioning. So I just drop down a datum and then just start dropping down dimensions. And I can pretty much dimension anything I want to here. If I go out here and snap and grab those, you can see that I can not only dimension, you know, holes or items on the board, I can also dimension the exterior of the board. You'll also see that when I drop down a hanging dimension there, it highlights it for me and lets me know that that is a hanging dimension. So it gives me a good indication if I've done something incorrectly. And we'll see that again a little bit later in the demo. I can also have push and shove, as you might imagine, and I have auto alignment, or I can just come in here and align these myself. So dimensioning becomes really easy in a tool like BluePrint. For those of you doing military, that sort of thing, we do have a full set of GBMT tools as well. So those are available to you. Let's go over to our note block here. Now, if I click on, in my Fabrication Drawing palette, if I click on Fabrication Notes, you'll see that, it's like I only have one in here now, but if I had multiple sets of fabrication notes, I would be able to choose the one that I want to put on here, but I have one in this case. The other thing you might notice is that I'm working over here in the tool. There's a limited amount of toolbars up here. As I come over here and start working on this, I get a note block toolbar. So one of the nice things about BluePrint is the context-sensitive toolbars. They only come up and appear when you need them. So they're not, you know, taking up all the space on your screen. We have so many toolbars that if you did that, as you can see, you'd have quite a mess here. And that's what I think a lot of tools do that, especially a lot of CAM tools. I'm real familiar with the CAM 350, and a lot of our competitors really just, there's just too much information going on the screen. So this idea of context-sensitive toolbars that only appear as you need them, I think really helps you with working on the actual document. So as you might guess, I'm here and I choose Note 4. If I want to move it up and down, I can move it up and down with my toolbar. If I want to make it a sub-note, I can just by doing it here on my toolbar. I can promote it back to a major note. If I go and I want to strike it out, I can do that. Or if I want to delete it, everything updates. Things you would expect. I mean, I told you this was automated, so you should expect it to do things like this. I can also go into to notes and do things like right-click on it and just say, let's add a call-out. for that specific node. Then I can take that node and snap it to my design, and now it's part of that board. And as I've said before, electronic documentation is our end goal. You know, we certainly can do paper documentation, but if we are doing electronic documentation, you can see the hyperlink right there that I click on, and it brings up that note. So these notes don't have to be on this page. They don't have to be on this drawing set. They just need to be in this database, and I can hyperlink directly to them. Okay, and again, as you should expect, you know, if I move it around, it updates the notes automatically, and if I delete it, the callout goes away. There's also spell check in here, so if I come over imageable and go to spelling, yes, it doesn't find a good alternative to imageable, but I could add it to my dictionary, and it becomes part of my spell check in the future. Fonts. Full control over fonts right here. It's just like any word processor. You know, uppercase, lowercase, grow the font, subscript, superscript, strikeout, text color, justification. Everything you might expect from a word processor is available to you when working on those. All right, so now on to my assembly drawing. And on my assembly drawing, I have a top side view and a bottom side view. As I showed you before, I flipped my bottom side view so that it's right reading. My top side view, just for the heck of it, I had it make all my component outlines red. If I go right click on that, go to Format PCB View, go to my CAD data, you can kind of get an idea of how I did that and what other things you can do, what other things you can turn on and show in your PCB views here. So this right here, we have the top and the bottom side as options. If I go to Advanced, I have it at the component level, so I could go in here and change any component, you know, what sort of line style. If we're using a fill, I could grab multiples here and, you know, choose what color I want for my fill and what sort of fill pattern I'd like to see and whether I want to show the reference designators and outlines and so forth. And I could do all that at the component level. I can also do that at the footprint level. I can do it at the layer level, choose what items I want to show on each individual layer. I can even choose what order items are displayed on the layers. So if I'm showing a layer and showing drills and pads and so forth, I might want to show the drills on top of the pads and maybe the pads on top of the solder mask clearance, that sort of thing. So I can set all that up in here. If I'm displaying multiple layers, I can set which order those layers will show in. And I can also go out to drills themselves, and maybe I don't want to show the symbol for my tooling holes. Maybe I just want to show a round circle for my tooling holes. So all of that's available to you in the formatting of any view. My bottom side view, as I said before, I have it set up to flip it automatically. I can set scaling in here. I can free-scale these. I can set exactly where I want them. Do I want to show whether it's the caption or not? Do I want to limit the view to the extent of the board? Do I want to fill copper? Do I want to show various angles when I'm showing things like side views on my design? So a lot of controls there. This was the PCB CAD data on which information you're showing. There's also some other things we can show in here. One of the nice things we'll do for you in BluePrint is help you with reference designator cleanup. Oftentimes your assembly layers are more reflective of the silk screen than actually something that's usable for doing assembly. So what we'll do for you is we'll allow you to set a minimum font size, a maximum font size, what sort of font you want to use, and actually create the reference designators for you centered in the component outlines. And that helps you clean up the reference designators. As a matter of fact, if I There's even more options here for cleaning up reference designators, and I can come over here and just select some of them and take those reference designators and drag them off somewhere else if I want to, just to help me with the visibility on those. So we have a lot of tools to help you with that cleanup. Go back in there again. We also have the idea of assembly variants. Now, you can bring in assembly variants several ways. Once you have those in here, you can display them. It shouldn't take, you know, an entire new documentation set just to show a variant of the design I'm working on. So I can show the master build in this case, or I can show option 1, or I could actually go out to my assembly drawing palette and go into my variant manager and really create a new variant if I wanted to. It doesn't have to be from the CAD system. Really, it's just a documentation issue of showing which items are used and not used on a particular variant of this design. So I'm going to go ahead and say create one from there, and then I'll go ahead and uninstall some things or substitute some things, and I've created a variant. I can then show that here. I can also bring in variants via CSV import. So I can just bring in any parts list and drop it down as a variant on my design, show it both in a parts list and show it both in a view, what the variant looks like. I can even color code it. If I come out here and I say I want to see build 1 now, it's color coded to the items that are installed and uninstalled. And I would just simply drop down a variant legend to go along with it. So those are a lot of the formatting options available to you on an individual view. Some other things I might want to do to a PCB view. I might want to do an exploded view. So, you know, maybe I come over here and I'll just grab my polyline tool and start drawing a line here and down here. And, you know, maybe it's just this whole box right here. And I just right click on it and say make exploded view. There it is. It's done already for me. So exploded views can become very useful. Now, this didn't really show me a lot. It's just showing me what I've got right here. So I format my exploded view and to show me the routes and pads and vias and ports. So now I'm showing it along with the reference designators, or I turn the reference designators off, either way. But gives you a nice way to create an exploded view of a particular area on the design. You can also drag and drop an exploded view and set what these features look like. So I set there, and I'll make this a little bit bigger, and again, I could turn on those particular items in my exploded view. And, you know, I can move it around. This is where I get oohs and ahs to a specific item, specific area to show my exploded view. I might do a side view. Point to a particular side of the board, and I can turn off reference designators or turn them on. I can show this in a first angle or third angle again. That's controlled back here at the Format PCB View. So first angle, preview, and third angle, and so forth. But I can show what that side of the design looks like. Okay. So a lot of options in here as far as what you can do to the actual views of the design. All right, so let's move down now to our assembly drawing. Excuse me, our page 2 of our assembly drawing, and this is our parts list. It's a template, a wizard, whatever you want to call it, just like any other in here. I can select it right here. I can go and edit that template and change these fields and put information, any information I have in any field here. A lot of people will design with generic parts, and then when they actually get ready to create their real parts list, they bring in the actual parts that they're going to use from maybe some other system, some sort of MRP system or something like that. And what you can do is you can actually import those into BluePrint. You simply import that parts list. You associate it to the one that's in the current design, usually by reference designator, part name, something like that, and it updates those parts with that information. And then all that information is available to you to drop down onto a drawing in a parts list or view or so forth. So it gives you the ability to use the actual information that's going to be used to build this design. And then again, once you're done, you would just simply execute the template and it would populate. Now, one of the other things we do here is kind of nice is we hyperlink directly to the components. So again, if you have internal assembly or incoming inspection, this gives you a nice way to look at that information. One thing I haven't mentioned, we've been working in the Edit tab here, is we do have a Preview tab, which shows you what the finished product, I mentioned that before, is going to look like. I can't do any edits in here, but this is what my output's going to look like. I also have a Design tab. I have the entire design in here. And if I send out a BluePrint database and we have a shop floor, they can come in here and touch and turn things on and off, copper, parts, layers, nets, drills, and actually touch the design inside of the BluePrint database with the documentation set. So it does give you a nice communication tool for your shop floor. Okay. So I do have a parts list here. There's various options. There's new options here in the in 3.5. One of them is a multi-variant parts list. So instead of showing, let me do this. Let's insert a new sheet here, and I'm just going to use a blank one. And this isn't going to be pretty, but I'd like to show you this because it is kind of cool. This is what a multi-variant parts list will look like. So I've got my two variants here, and it shows whether different items are used or not used. Of course, I clean this up over here, but so this is what it looks like, and we have several customers that are doing this. So that's the reason that we decided to include this in 3.5. So each build is used in a column here, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet showing the parts list. Okay. All right, so let me go back. I have a parts list manager. I have my master data. This essentially came in with the CAD system. Any kind of imported data would show in here. Any kind of user data, if I added any parts to this parts list, which I can do. Once I do that, I can add things like mechanical components. I can actually associate those mechanical components to the electrical components. So if it takes 4 screws, 2 washers, well, I guess you'd want 4 washers, and 4 nuts for every connector on the board, I can make that association so that the quantities are correct in my finished parts list. You've seen the assembly variant manager, and then there's this whole idea of alternate parts that can be used as well. You can actually specify not only the parts, but the alternate part beside of it in the parts list. One of the other things we can do, and this helps in the, for those of you that are doing your own assembly or have some assembly on site, is we have this process step manager. The process step manager allows us to indicate the steps that are used in the assembly process. So I have assembly 1 here, and I'm going to add a new step. We'll just leave it at subgroup 1. I can name this anything I want to, but this step is going to be, I want to highlight these in red. I'm going to come over here and pick all my 1206s, and then I'm going to do a new subgroup. And this one we'll do green, and maybe we'll come down and we'll get our quarter-watt resistors. And basically you can build up your assembly steps here. Once you've done that, I can go back to any of my views or create a new view and format it to show that particular process step. So if I want to see just the ones in subgroup 1, I can see those, or the ones in subgroup 2, which these might all be on, oh, they are on the bottom. Okay. So I can set the various steps here in my processes so that it's color coding essentially. It's a more intelligent way of doing color coding on your design. And I can also drop down a process step chart that would show with the color coding which items are in each process step. All right. I have this last drawing down here that I want to show you one of the other items in our palettes over here. This came up, after the fact. This wasn't in the initial release of BluePrint, but in my experience as a fabricator and working with designers, creating panel drawings was one of the most difficult things to do. So we decided to create a whole panel drawing toolkit in BluePrint. And panel drawing is a documentation issue. It's not really a CAM issue. It's something that we need to document properly, and that's the most important part. The tools that we have currently force us to go through a CAM tool to do this. We have to go in, do a step and repeat, then we can output the step and repeated data, but then we probably go into a mechanical tool and add things like mill tabs. Unintelligently, by the way, they're just pictures of what a mill tab should look like. We could do it in a CAM tool, but a CAM tool, is set up for actually milling the design. So it doesn't know what a mill tab is. It's just the start and the stop of a router bit. So there are very difficult ways to deal with this currently. So we've decided to address it as a documentation issue. So I want to create a panel. So I'm going to drag and drop it over here onto my drawing. Go to the format, and I want rails on both sides. I don't want any distance to the top and bottom. I want to put 0.1 between my boards because I'm going to do a web route. I've got fingers on here, and to be nice to the board shop and to be cheaper, I'm going to point them outwards so they don't have to do any kind of selective plating. So I flip those. They flip in place. To this, I'm going to add some pinning holes. Go out to my library of pinning holes, pick the ones I want, pick where I want them. Get a little preview of that. Same idea with fiducials. So I'm going to add some fiducials to my panel. Where do I want those? I chamfer the corners of my panels. This is something my contract manufacturer requires. So let's go ahead and put a nice little chamfer in there. And basically, I'm ready to really start working on my panel. This is what I want it to look like. I'm going to go in here and now and edit this panel and select the first board and say add a web route to it. And to that web route, I'm going to go to my favorite mill tab and drop it down onto there. I have a mill tab manager where I can create basically any kind of mill tab that I want. Once I've created those, I have a library of them. I can pick the one that I want to use and make it the default. And then it's just a simple matter of dragging and dropping from design to design. I just simply drag and drop where I want them. And yeah, I can type in locations, but you know what? That's kind of a dated idea because really I want to just kind of eyeball where they need to be properly. And then I can just go in here and align them just by using the tools in BluePrint. So, I can move those along. I can even turn layers on and off to see if I'm hitting copper or near copper or components are overhanging. All of that's available to me because I can format BluePrint any way I want to show this. But once they're all aligned, I'm just going to simply come out here and copy them, select the rest of my boards, and apply them to the rest of my boards. Okay. Once they're out on the rest of my boards, I'm just going to go ahead and merge them. Everything that would drop out in the milling process drops out. I'm pretty much done with my panelization. Yeah, I'm going to go back and dimension it. We saw how to do dimensioning before. I can take and drop down my datum point here and snap to something. Board edge, fiducial, edge of the panel, whatever I want to snap to. And then just start dragging dimensions, dropping dimensions, and I can dimension, you know, the edge of a mill tab. I can dimension to the center of it. All of those things are available to me. Of course, you remember we had the dog legging, so I can kind of press that up as well. I probably want to add a mill tab detail, so I'm just going to drop one of those down. And, you know, I picked the one that I used. It's this one with all the dimensions. It puts it in there for me. And maybe I want a drill chart. Looks like I should put it somewhere else. It ran into the actual design, so it went down to the next page, which is actually kind of intelligent. What I'm going to do here, though, with my drill chart is actually format it so that it not only shows all the drills, but just the ones I've added here in my panel drawing, since I already have all this on my fab drawing. Okay. Add some notes. You know what? I'm done with my panel drawing. It wasn't painful. There's no reason on a design as simple as this that it should take me any more than 20, 30 minutes to create a panel drawing. All right, so let's kind of zoom out here. We've got our drawings here. We've been working on these religiously for the last 45 minutes. And now it comes down that, you know what, we can't use these through-hole components here anymore. They're changing them to surface mounts. So there's an update of the CAD data we have to do. So what do? Well, come over and pick the new CAD data. Which of my drawings am I going to update with that information? Say OK. This now became a 6 layer. Those through-hole components went away. My drill chart was updated. My top and bottom side views were updated with the new information. As you can see there, I've got a 2 surface mount components along with my 1 through-hole component. My parts list updated. Even my panel drawing updated with that new information. One thing you might notice, well, I didn't get it this time. Actually, this tooling hole changed from one to another. If it had changed, it would show in orange now. If I had dimensioned it before, it would show that now in orange. So I would know that I have a hanging dimension. So that's one way of doing updates, instant ECOs, if you will. But the other way is, well, what if this is released and in production, and now we're changing the design? Okay. Well, we have this idea that when a document set is done and ready to go to production, you go ahead and you sign it off. Okay. And what that means is that if I now close this and go out to my desktop here where I put that and open that up again, it's going to prompt me to go into view only mode or ECO mode. View only is just that. I can view, I can't edit. ECO mode is going to prompt me to roll a revision. So I'm going to go in here and roll a revision of all these. Now it doesn't force you to do this. It's only going to prompt you to do this. Once I've done this, and I'm doing this for a reason, is that first of all, it updates all my drawings to the new revision there. And second of all, I'm now going to bring in the new data. So I'm going to go back to the original one here and update my drawings with that data. What we do is we save a bitmap of the original revision. So I can always go and display the various revisions of a design It's a bitmap, it's not intelligent or anything, but I can quickly see the differences between various revisions of a design. So it's a couple different ideas that we have in regards to rolling the revision, or instant ECOs, I think we call it in our literature. Again, I'm done with my documentation set. I'm ready to output it. What are my options? Well, I can save it off just as a blueprint file, as I said before, and anybody with the free viewer, free download from our website, can open it up and view it. I can publish to the web. I can export as a PDF or a DXF, or write it out to a printer driver as a PDF. Or I can even do this pack and release option I mentioned before, where I actually take and embed the documentation set with a viewer. I can choose which items I want. So if I'm just going to fabrication, I would choose just the fabrication items. If I just go into assembly, I'd choose those. If it's a contract manufacturer, I'd probably do them all. Which files and fonts that I want to link, the more important part is the files here. So if I had embedded any files, like I mentioned before, you can embed videos or specifications or so forth. I can choose those to be included. Do I want to include the viewer? Of course. And I can actually time it. So how many days I'm allowing people to view this. Right now I'm just going to leave it at unlimited. And I could suppress some things like that design window if I don't want them to be able to see the actual design. The reason I do all of this, or the reason I would time this is, you know, if I'm sending this out for quoting, I may want them to only have access to it for a certain number of days, and then after that certain number of days, if I decide to send it elsewhere, I don't want them to have my design. Interesting, a designer that I mentioned this to it said the other nice thing about timing it is it makes them do the quote. Instead of letting it sit around for 5 days and then doing the quote, they have to do it within a certain number of days. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. And it's going to create this single executable that has my entire set of documents along with the viewer embedded in it. And I'm just going to go out here to, again, to my desktop and run it. And this is what our viewer looks like. Again, here's all my, my drawings. I can go from one drawing to another, or separate sheets of different drawings and see those. I do have the design data. I didn't suppress it. So again, a nice shop floor tool. If I go back into my view here, I can go to my hyperlink reference designators. They're still there. Any hyperlinks or any intelligence I would have added to this is still here and available to you. So that's the pack and release concept, and it's also what our regular viewer looks like as well. So, but it does give you that option to time the viewing of the data. All right. Well, I've gotten no questions so far. We are at the end of the seminar, so I will hang around for a little bit if somebody does come up with a question. You know, feel free to type them in at any point here, or just let me know you're going to type one in and I'll wait around. This is BluePrint. This is an overview of BluePrint. By all means, doesn't show everything you can do with BluePrint, and you know, it can be customized as I showed you in the document wizard before, all the way to the point we have some customers it's basically push button, or you can use it interactively. You know, it's such an enhancement over what we're doing now, even in the interactive mode, that it's really going to cut down the amount of time it takes to create a documentation set.